For decades, the overwhelming prevalence of this blood type among the indigenous peoples of the Americas has puzzled experts without a definitive explanation. Regeneration goes beyond biology. It reflects the recovery of language, culture, and history within communities. In parallel, science finally seems to have deciphered one of humanity's greatest genetic enigmas: the origins of type O blood. By 2025, the scenario has changed. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. New discoveries have challenged traditional assumptions, revealing a complex narrative of ancestral migrations and unexpected genetic encounters. These advances suggest that type O blood is not just a common variant, but an ancient clue connecting global populations in previously unforeseen ways. This breakthrough rewrites the history of human migrations, showing how environmental factors and evolutionary pressures shaped the biological profile of American peoples. The centuries-old mystery now gives way to a deeper understanding of the profound connections etched in our own veins. Long before colonizers redrew the world map in the 15th century, a silent yet powerful marker of human history already flowed through the veins of millions. It wasn't gold, land, or language. It was blood, and not just any kind, type O blood. Found in impressive concentrations among the indigenous peoples of the Americas, type O blood carries more than oxygen and nutrients. It carries one of humanity's oldest and most persistent mysteries. It is the most common blood type in the world, but somehow, in some parts of the Americas, it is almost the only one. Up to 100% of certain indigenous populations possess it. This kind of purity is rare in biology. Scientists are not only interested, they are perplexed. Because type O is not only common, it is also the least prone to mutation. It resists change. It doesn't mix easily with other types. It's the odd one out of blood, surviving silently while everything else revolves around it. Blood types aren't just labels. They're a system integrated into our biology. Human blood is classified into 4 main types: A, B, AB, and O. What differentiates them are the antigens, which are proteins and sugars located on the surface of red blood cells. Type A blood has A antigens, type B has B antigens, AB has both, and type O has neither. This absence is precisely what makes type O so special. Without these antigens, type O blood is less likely to cause an immune reaction when transfused into another person. That's why it's called the universal donor. It's the standard blood type in emergencies because it plays fair with the others. But type O does more than save lives. It also holds evolutionary advantages. Scientists believe that people with type O blood may have been more resistant to certain diseases. There is even evidence that it offers more protection against serious infections such as malaria. While this seems more relevant to Africa than to the Americas, it still suggests why type O may have survived, while other types disappeared. When researchers look at the distribution of blood types around the world, they find something strange. Indigenous groups in North, Central, and South America overwhelmingly have type O blood. In some tribes, the frequency is 90% or more. The global average is closer to 62%. This is not a small difference. It is a complete evolutionary bifurcation. The reason for this is not entirely clear, but one theory stands out. It is believed that, thousands of years ago, small groups of humans migrated from Siberia to North America, crossing a land bridge called Beringia during the last ice age. If these groups predominantly carried type O blood and remained isolated for generations, it would make sense that the type would become dominant. Isolation plays a key role here. For thousands of years, the peoples of the Americas remained isolated from the rest of the world. No new blood types were introduced, there was no external mixing. This kept the genetic heritage of type O intact and highly concentrated. Some scientists believe there is more than just isolation involved in environmental survival and blood type. Type O blood may have helped early Americans survive in harsh environments. In mountainous regions where oxygen levels are lower, people with type O blood may have had a slight advantage. Their blood might have been better at delivering oxygen under pressure. This survival advantage, however small, could have made a huge difference over time. In adverse conditions, even minor genetic benefits can shape entire populations. Observing where blood types are most common is like looking at an old travel map. In Africa, where humans are believed to have first evolved, type O is also widespread. As people migrated to Europe and Asia, other types like A and B became more common. Type A dominated Western Europe, while type B grew in Central and Eastern Asia. This shift wasn't random. It reflected new environments, diets, and perhaps even social changes over thousands of years. When ancient humans first crossed into the Americas, they brought not only tools or hunting skills, they brought something even more powerful: blood. Specifically, blood with the type O gene, which would eventually dominate the genetic landscape of entire continents. Over time, this gene did not weaken or become diluted. It became stronger, more widespread, and today remains one of the most consistent genetic markers in indigenous populations throughout the Americas. Once these early communities were established, their contact with outsiders dropped to almost zero. Without the influx of new groups, the introduction of new genetic traits slowed. This isolation acted like a time capsule. Without new variants mixing into the population, type O blood remained. Then nature did the rest. Certain diseases and environmental challenges may have pressured the population in ways that favored people with type O blood. Over time, those with types A or B likely faced more health risks, or were simply less likely to pass on their genes. The result was that type O not only survived, but became dominant. Other remote groups around the world also have high rates of specific blood types. In some Pacific islands, for example, people also show strong patterns linked to isolation and migration. But what sets the Americas apart is how overwhelming the presence of blood type O is. No other region has such a high percentage in so many different environments, from the icy north to the humid Amazon. This type of dominance raises questions not only about survival, but about how migration and adaptation unfolded in the Western Hemisphere. The story of blood type O begins with the Ice Age, as people moved from Asia to the Americas, likely across a land bridge in what is now the Bering Strait, bringing with them a limited set of genetic traits. One of these traits was the gene for type O blood. Over thousands of years, this gene spread to every corner of the continents. Some scientists describe it not just as a trait, but as a marker of adaptation, a sign that early humans had what was needed to survive in unfamiliar territories. In the 1980s, researchers in Arizona conducted a large study in Native American communities, and the results were striking. 99% of the participants had type O blood. This was not just a local phenomenon. High rates of type O blood were subsequently found in communities from Canada to South America. Scientists began to question why this specific blood type had become so widespread, and the answer pointed to natural selection. Living in harsh environments meant constant exposure to new threats: disease, food shortages, and extreme weather. These were not occasional problems, they were a way of life. Type O blood may have offered advantages. Its lack of A and B antigens possibly reduced vulnerability to certain infections. This, in itself, could have helped people with this blood type survive more frequently, especially during outbreaks or times of environmental stress. As communities moved inland, those carrying type O blood may have had an easier time adapting. Over generations, this created a feedback loop. People with type O blood survived, reproduced, and passed their blood type on repeatedly. Slowly, the genetic heritage tilted even further in favor of O. Type O blood tells a story that goes beyond resilience. It also highlights how people remained connected. Across thousands of kilometers and countless generations, this shared blood type functioned as a silent thread running through indigenous populations. It became a biological sign of shared history, something that modern DNA research has now confirmed. Advances in genetic analysis have traced bloodlines and migration patterns with incredible precision, all pointing to the very beginnings of human life in the Americas. This story matters in ways that go far beyond genetics. In medicine, type O blood plays a critical role, especially in emergency care. Hospitals rely heavily on type O, particularly O negative, which can be used on any patient regardless of their own blood type. This makes it essential during surgeries, trauma cases, and natural disasters, situations where doctors don't have time to check a patient's blood type before acting. Type O positive, while not as universal, can still be used in many cases where the patient has the Rh positive factor. Due to these characteristics, both types are in constant demand. The problem is that many indigenous communities with high percentages of type O blood often face barriers to accessing medical care. Blood donations are low, and supply chains don't always reach remote areas, creating a frustrating contradiction. The blood type exists in these populations, but it's not always available when it's most needed. Known as the universal donor, type O blood can be safely transfused to people of any blood type, saving lives in emergencies. However, this special ability creates a major problem: constantly high demand. Hospitals worldwide depend on it, making it difficult to maintain a stable supply, resulting in frequent shortages. Healthcare systems struggle to balance the reserve needed for sudden emergencies with meeting daily medical needs. This constant pressure affects the day-to-day operation of hospitals and blood banks. The importance of type O blood goes beyond transfusions. Researchers are discovering that blood type can influence the chances of contracting certain diseases. For example, people with type O blood may have a lower risk of heart disease and react differently to infections. Fully understanding this link could transform preventive medicine and treatment choices, opening doors to personalized, genetically based care. Because type O blood is not evenly distributed, questions arise about equity, especially in regions with limited access to health care. To address this, experts suggest increasing donation rates, improving blood storage and sharing, and strengthening international partnerships. Scientists are also exploring alternatives such as artificial blood, improved typing tools, and even gene editing. Even with these advancements, type O blood will remain crucial due to its unparalleled natural properties in critical situations. There is also an evolutionary perspective. Many Native American communities in harsh environments, such as high mountain areas, have very high rates of type O blood. This suggests a possible evolutionary advantage. In the Andes, for example, where oxygen is scarce, the body has had to adapt. One theory proposes that type O blood is slightly more fluid than other types, which would facilitate circulation and oxygen delivery under pressure. Furthermore, the absence of A and B antigens may offer protection against certain infections, such as severe malaria, enhancing survival in adverse conditions. Some scientists believe that blood type may also affect metabolism. Research suggests that type O blood may be better suited to digesting diets rich in protein and fat, typical of early hunter-gatherer societies. In close-knit indigenous groups, type O individuals may have been valued as universal donors during childbirth emergencies or injuries, which could have elevated their status and chances of reproduction, making the blood type more common over time. Today, genetics has become a powerful tool for learning about ancestry. By studying blood types and DNA, researchers trace the movement of ancient populations, confirming stories passed down through generations in Native American communities. DNA technology has helped families confirm roots and discover new family links, providing a deep connection to historical heritage. A notable example is the family of Sitting Bull, the famous native leader, who confirmed his ancestry through DNA testing, showing how science can preserve cultural identity. Certain genetic markers are found only in Native American groups, directly connecting descendants to the continent's first inhabitants. For individuals exploring this ancestry in the modern world, it's rarely just a scientific experiment. It's an emotional journey to reclaim the identity, language, and culture that colonization attempted to silence. DNA helps reconstruct lost links and can be the beginning of a deeper cultural engagement. This discovery of ancestry also has practical consequences, potentially aiding in access to rights, resources, and legal recognition. The story of Leo Lapointe, a direct descendant of Sitting Bull confirmed by DNA, exemplifies how this technology powerfully unites past and present. However, DNA testing raises serious ethical questions about privacy, consent, and data control, especially for indigenous communities that have already faced centuries of exploitation. It is crucial to remember that tribal identity is not defined solely by DNA, but rather by community, culture, and shared history. Reducing native identity to genetic markers risks transforming something sacred into a commercial product. As heritage becomes a business, the debate grows about who profits from this information and whether indigenous voices are being respected. For this technology to truly help reconnect with roots, it must respect the communities involved, avoiding repeating the mistakes of the past. DNA has not only changed our understanding of recent ancestry, it has altered our view of the entire human trajectory. This has also changed how we view ancient history. Tracing long-lost family trees has become more precise, even allowing people to explore prehistoric connections with ancient human relatives such as Neanderthals and Denisovans. The Denisovans, a mysterious branch of ancient humans, are still being studied because scientists can't decide whether they count as a separate species or just a different group within archaic humans. What we do know is that both Denisovans and Neanderthals share a surprising number of similarities with modern humans, enough for many researchers to consider them subspecies of Homo sapiens. These groups were not as distant or primitive as we had assumed. They possessed unique abilities, complex brains, and adapted well to their environments. The idea that Neanderthals lacked intelligence is being refuted by science. Evidence shows that they possessed advanced tools, social behaviors, and possibly even art and language. Neanderthals did not disappear because they were less evolved. Their decline occurred around the same time that our own ancestors, Homo sapiens sapiens, began to spread across the planet. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals and Denisovans began to disappear. The reason for this remains a great scientific mystery, but understanding it is essential to the broader story of how modern humans became the dominant species on Earth. Through all of this, DNA continues to play a leading role, not only looking back, but helping people today understand who they are and where they come from. It's science, but it's also personal, and in many ways, it's rewriting how we tell the story of humanity. Sometimes research takes unexpected turns. A study that didn't intend to explore why Neanderthals disappeared ended up offering new clues about their extinction. By closely observing the shared characteristics and genetic links between Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans, scientists gained new insight into what may have caused the Neanderthals' disappearance. One of the most interesting discoveries about them is their culture. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of art, skilled craftsmanship, and even symbolic behavior among Neanderthals. These findings challenge old ideas that portrayed them as simple or less intelligent. Instead, they show a group capable of complex thought and creativity. Genetic research adds another layer to this story. Modern humans carry traces of Neanderthal DNA, meaning that the two groups not only lived side by side, but also interbred. This interaction likely influenced both groups and contributed to the diversity we see in human DNA today. All of this reveals that Neanderthals were not merely primitive beings who disappeared because they were weaker or less intelligent. They were complex and adaptable relatives who lived alongside our ancestors for thousands of years. Recognizing their role in human evolution helps us better understand the long and remarkable journey that made modern humans the dominant species on Earth. Crawford's DNA. A recent DNA test has surprised scientists with its depth and detail. Researchers at the Cell Research Institute traced the ancestry of a man named Crawford, who lives in Harb, Lady, Chati, Montana. What they found goes beyond previous expectations and could change what we know about human history in the Americas. Harb is located within the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, a vast area covering over 485,000 hectares in northwestern Montana. The Blackfeet Nation is one of the largest Native American tribes in the United States, with over 177,000 members. Blackfeet communities in Alberta, Canada. The rich culture and history of this region make it an important place to study human migration and ancestry. The common theory is that the first people to arrive in the Americas came from northern Siberia, crossing the Bering Land Bridge thousands of years ago. But Crawford's genetic results tell a more complex story. His DNA reveals patterns that challenge previous ideas and open up new questions about how humans spread across the globe. This discovery is not just about the history of one man's family. It offers new insights that could change our understanding of global human migration. Crawford's connection to the Blackfeet Nation adds a vivid cultural context to this scientific advancement, showcasing the strength and resilience of indigenous peoples. In a world where cultures and populations are constantly changing, one man's genetic heritage opens a window to a much larger story, connecting us to the deep history of Native American peoples. Crawford's DNA test is not just a personal journey. It's part of a larger puzzle that researchers are piecing together to understand human migration and ancestry. By tracing Crawford's genetic roots, scientists are uncovering complex stories that span centuries. This work reminds us how our stories are truly intertwined, shedding light on the incredible journeys that have shaped human identity. By learning about Crawford's origins, we not only honor his heritage, but also deepen our understanding of the rich and diverse history shared by all people. Scientists have long been curious about the origins of type O blood in Native American populations. Although uncommon, he occasionally appeared in certain families. Where did he come from? Legends speak of a traveler from a distant place, a stranger with fair skin and blue eyes, who arrived among the tribes long ago. Some saw him as a lost soul seeking refuge. Others whispered that he was from another world. His arrival coincided with the first appearances of type O blood in these communities. Over time, the story of this stranger became part of the tribe's history. Some believed he brought blessings, while others thought his lineage brought misfortune. The true answer remains hidden, buried beneath generations of stories and time. The mystery of type O blood persists. Lake Baikal. Lake Baikal, in Siberia, is more than just the oldest and deepest freshwater lake in the world. It has been a vital meeting point connecting East and West through genetic and cultural exchanges for thousands of years. This connection dates back to the Paleolithic era and lasted until the Bronze Age. Some scientists believe that the people who lived near Lake Baikal may be the ancestors of modern Native Americans. The popular idea that the first Americans arrived on the continent by crossing a land bridge from Siberia to Alaska is widely accepted, but it's not the whole story. An article from National, the 2018 issue of Geographic, raised questions about how humans first arrived in North America. Did they walk across the Bering Strait, travel by boat along the coast, or cross the Arctic ice? Or, as some Native American tribes, like the Navajo, believe, have they always been here? These differing ideas show how much we still don't know. Lake Baikal, with its clear waters and unique wildlife, also holds a profound human history. Archaeological findings suggest that people lived along its shores 500,000 years ago. Early humans depended on the lake for food and shelter. Later, Lake Baikal became a key center for trade and cultural exchange. Ancient routes crisscrossed the region, allowing different groups to share goods and ideas. This helped societies become more complex and develop new technologies, including advanced metallurgy. One of the most fascinating parts of Lake Baikal's history is its role as a place where people from both the West and the East have come together for millennia. Along its shores, different groups met, mixed, and shared their genes. This long history of genetic exchange shaped populations not only in Siberia, but also far beyond. Scientists continue to debate how Lake Baikal connects to the history of the Americas. Simon Worrell, a researcher, has closely examined these alternative ideas. He points out how complex human migration really is and encourages people to rethink the usual stories about how humans spread across the world. The story of Lake Baikal is about more than migration. It's also about how people adapted to changing environments, shared cultures, and created diverse genetic lineages. Even now, as scientists learn more, Lake Baikal remains a powerful symbol of survival and connection across thousands of years. DNA evidence shows that Native Americans and Polynesians interacted approximately 800 years ago. This contact occurred across vast distances of open ocean and left clear genetic imprints on today's populations. This part of the story is often overlooked because the mainstream narrative focuses on the European conquest. The idea that Polynesians and Native Americans had maritime contact long before the arrival of Europeans has fascinated scientists for years. Supporters of this idea point to the discovery of New World plants, such as sweet potatoes and gourds, at Polynesian archaeological sites. These plants did not grow anywhere else outside the Americas before Columbus. Although some genetic studies have yielded mixed results, recent research has strengthened this theory. Scientists have found shared segments of Native American DNA in people from many Polynesian islands. This suggests that a unique encounter occurred between these groups, leading to intermarriages and children with mixed heritage. Statistical studies also support this, showing that this event occurred around the time when Polynesians first colonized these islands. Using computer models, researchers have traced this Native American DNA back to what is now Colombia. This discovery adds a surprising chapter to the history of humanity, showing how far people have traveled and connected. In 2025, scientists solved a long-standing question about type O blood. Through extensive genetic research, they identified previously unknown variations within the ABO gene group. These variations explain the distinct properties of type O blood, including how its antigens influence the immune system, disease resistance, and compatibility during blood transfusions. The study also provides insights into why type O blood is particularly prevalent among indigenous populations of the Americas. Genetic differences appear to have given early human communities a survival advantage against specific infectious diseases. The adaptive advantage of type O blood in certain populations suggests that it played a crucial role in human survival and development over millennia. Beyond history, this discovery has a direct impact on medicine. Mapping these variations allows for greater accuracy in blood typing, increasing safety in transfusions and clinical procedures. With this new understanding, healthcare professionals can personalize care, predicting how type O patients react to specific infections and treatments. Thus, type O blood ceases to be seen merely as the universal donor and is understood as a complex genetic trait that has shaped the health and trajectory of our species. Transfusion medicine opens doors to new research, leaving us with a provocative reflection. If blood type O held such complexity, what other secrets still await deciphering in our DNA? Leave your opinion in the comments.